I spend a lot of time on this. We're having a thesis of a venture capital fund building on top of Bitcoin and the decentralization security. You can imagine because it touches everything. So
Totally. You're betting everything on it.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, everything. And I try not to do this from I have a horse in the race uh, other than the benefit of humanity, where I want my kid, the type of world I want my kids to grow up in, rather than the type of world they grow up in if we have manipulation and money. Um, so, so, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about this. I'd have people look at a paper recently released by it's on Bitcoin Lens, uh, uh, bitcoinlens.com, and in it takes a first principle approach on on the thing, how we think about quantum versus what actually might be happening. And so and what they believe is that time is emergent from energy turning into information. But we measure everything through linear time. So we think two states can exist at the same time. And the double slit experiment, we're part of the experiment, right? So when you observe it, it only goes through one slit. So so the energy turning that into information is time moving forward. And blockchain, Bitcoin is all of the information states, all the potential states of all the mempool collapsing when Bitcoin is mined and turning one system into information, and it can't go backwards. It can't be two states at once. It's the appearance of believing two things can coexist that you think they can coexist, but when you get to discrete time, they can't coexist. So that would be one way. If they're right, it means there's never going to be quantum threats to Bitcoin. And why I think they're actually right is when you look at the quantum noise and you actually go deeper into it, every time the quantum says they're going to do something, it still hasn't. I don't think it's still factored two numbers, right? They so early on this, but the logical qubits being able to do this, every time they come up with something that can do this, then behind that they have tons of error correction trying to solve it. And what I think is happening is they're trying to measure quantum in general field is trying to measure discrete time through something that you can't. Right. So if that's and it's binary. If they're right on that, it changes it. Then there's never going to be a quantum attack on Bitcoin. It can't be. It's impossible for there to be. So now hold that thought and say, what if they're wrong? Right. And so that's one thought. And so we should follow that. So we should really investigate that at a first principle level to see is that true? Is that possible? Because it changes so many other things. But we're used to living in this world where we trust experts that are constantly wrong. Right? We think about what happened in COVID, think about Epstein, think about everything else, and we just keep on living in this world that we keep on trusting the experts, and there's always another thing. So if quantum and the money system was broken, and it had tons of money to try to co-opt this, then there might be a bigger chance of a backdoor being implemented into quantum threat. Fix it quickly, because quantum risk is real. Everybody's going to lose their money. If that was real, think about the risk to your bank account, nuclear codes, everything else that is protected by the same quantum. Okay, but let's put that in a box and say that is one potential that there is never going to be a quantum risk ever. Bitcoin is the first quantum computer that ever existed, and people should take that down and do their own research on that. Could that be true? Now, let's say there is a quantum risk. The nodes, the nodes control Bitcoin, And so what you would do is the same other piece of work that's happening right now is making things quantum resistance in case that. And there's a whole bunch of Bitcoin improvement protocols that are currently going through the work that people are objectively looking at and reviewing and reviewing and viewing to ensure it would be quantum proof before that happened. And so, like I said, when I run a node, of course, I'm watching the entire landscape of all the noise, all the signal, and everything else to what should I do to upgrade my node if I need to upgrade my node at a certain time to make sure that Bitcoin is resistant.
So, on that, if there were a quantum threat and you needed the Bitcoin nodes to come together to some consensus around how to prevent Bitcoin from being vulnerable to this quantum threat, could there be the need for another fork, right? Could there be solutions that might fix the problem, but at a cost to either the
Yes.
security of the
Yes.
network or so on and so forth?
So, so, so whether it's a soft fork or a hard fork, but the answer is yes. So when I say Bitcoin stays decentralized and secure, and that ushers and it imposes a new world, I did not say the same Bitcoin that everybody's using today. The, the world the world emerges from our actions, and if you think about the type of people that have the type of knowledge, the type of brain power that's inside this system protecting this, and 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 driving into this, that would create this crazy fight, right? What is Bitcoin to you? What is Bitcoin to me? It would be constantly in motion, right? And at some points, that will cause a chain split. I suspect it. Not it doesn't have to, but I suspect against the type of control coming and the type of what this would shift our entire world to look like from a belief system over here. It's always looked like to this. I expect that the chaos coming, not just Bitcoin, the chaos coming from people living in an imaginary world where somebody else prints his pieces of paper, and what that's going to do when inflation skyrockets and then you have a deflationary spiral after that, what it is going to rip people apart, right? And what that's going to do to them. Now you have to use that same analogy on Bitcoin and say what it's going to do over here in a different system. And I expect there to be chain splits. I expect that to be. And if you're on the wrong side of that, if you're on the the one that fails, then you could get wiped out.
And it wouldn't necessarily be very easy to know, right? I mean, how would you know if you're on the right side of that or not?
So this is why in Bitcoin, and it's so important that people say don't trust, verify, because we're so used to trusting other people in a system that we know we shouldn't, right? But that it keeps on, it's getting worse and worse and worse, and the action is on the agency of the individual to do their own work, and to do their own work and take their own agency and understand. And if they and even how I've talked about some of this, there are risks. The risks are us. The risks are what we do, because the future doesn't just come into existence. It comes into existence with us. It doesn't happen to us. We're actually people who create that. So then through that lens, who should you look to in a chaotic environment to who can you learn from? Who can you should look at all different points of view, and you should go deeper on these points of view, and then look back at that person's proof of work and say, have they been consistent? Have they, if they were wrong, do they admit where they were wrong? Because today in the world, if you say what most people are viewing in the world, every day somebody changes their mind, and they still get so many views, right? This is what's going to happen
True.
tomorrow. And people still follow them over and over and over again. It's insane.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so,
just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.